In this lesson, we'll begin building some accessories for our character. We'll start with the headband. So let's start back in Mudbox. We need to have the head in Maya so that we can use it as a guide for creating our headband, or bandana. So let's actually select our object, in this case just the head, and I want to send it to Maya. So we'll select it as new scene, and I don't want to send it necessarily at this level. There aren't going to be there isn't going to be a huge amount of change up here if I were to send the base level. So because that's going to be easier to work with, I will go ahead and send the base. If there's a huge level of, huge amount, I guess, of detail that is going to be missing in the base level that you're going to need to be able to build something off of, then you may want to send a higher level. But in this case, we're just building something that fit to the head. So I think sending the base will be fine. So I'll go ahead and send the base mesh. And so that's going to go through the process of exporting that. And once it's complete, we'll be able to open up Maya and see that mesh in here. So you can see there is our base mesh. I'm just going to smooth it for now. And so what we want to do now is build his headband to take into Mudbox. So I'm going to start by just creating a pipe, polygon primitive pipe. Let's bring it up, and let's just try to shape it to his head. So the first thing I'll do is go into polypipe. Let's take the thickness down. So maybe something like that. Let's take the height down a bit. Maybe something like so. And again, we don't need to fit it directly to his head. We just want to have the geometry in there, and we can do a lot of that fitting process in Mudbox. So I'll make it maybe 0.5 or 0.6 high. Maybe it's a little bit too short. Let me split the difference. And I want to make it a little bit thinner, maybe 0.06 actually. Maybe something like that. And I'll take the radius down a bit. Okay. Now I want to kind of rotate it. It's going to be angled a bit. And now that I've got it rotated on here, I think it does need to be a little bit higher, a little bit taller. So we'll say 0.7 for that. Now I think that is good as far as the size. Let's go ahead and just pull this in this axis. And you can see we have some parts penetrating. That's okay. I'm not going to spend too much time shaping it again in here. Now I do want to add a little bit of resolution because I want it to keep. If we were to smooth it here, I just want to add a couple of lines. So I'm just going to insert an edge loop here and here. I don't want it to be super sharp because it's not a hard surface piece. I just want to give us a little bit more resolution to work with. And we are going to be smoothing it though, so keep that in mind. All right. So the next thing that we want to do is I'm going to actually move the back of this down a little bit. And to do this, I'm going to turn on soft select. So go ahead and turn off soft select. And you can see as I select this back, it's not really, the radius isn't large enough to affect anything else. So I'm going to increase the radius until I get a little bit more of an effect going out to the edges. Okay, and then I can start to bring this down to the back of the head. I can do the same thing down here with these. And then come in here just so that I can add my knot, and it'll be a little bit closer to being in the right spot. All right. Now for the knot, I'm going to go ahead and create a polygon primitive torus. Let's go ahead and bring this to the back and size it up. Okay, we don't need something nearly that high res. So I'm going to take the subdivisions on the axis and height down to 8. All right, and then I'll kind of scale it down. Now this is stylized, so we can kind of take our liberties with this a little bit. Kind of bring this in here up to the back. Let's duplicate it by hitting Control D, And now we can rotate this one around, and we also want the toruses to sort of interlock. And I'm going to smooth both of them so I make sure to get a nice interlock there. Okay, on this one I'm going to go ahead and take the section radius up a bit and then reduplicate. So I really want them to penetrate almost with each other, but still sort of interlock. I don't want any space between because I want this to be sort of a tight knot there. Okay, so something like that. And we can select both of those and we group them together and just kind of rotate them so they're right penetrating into that headband. All right, now for kind of the pieces hanging off, I'll just use a cube, bring this to the back, kind of scale it up a bit. Now obviously you want it to be a thin, just like the thickness of this the rest of this headband, so I'll scale it down a bit, make it a bit longer so we have something to work with, make it a bit more narrow. All right, and then we need to add some resolution to this, so we'll go into polycube. On the height we'll add a few lines in here. On the depth we can maybe add 1, or we can leave that. Yeah, I think we can leave it, that's okay. Now I'm going to take the end of this. Let's turn off our soft selects, we don't need to use it anymore. Let's take the end of this and I just want to scale it in and move it up so it comes to more of a point. All right, make a bit more of a point there. And then I want it to be able to go inside into that knot, so I'm going to make it a little bit thinner. And I can kind of rotate it out, so I don't have to do any sort of deformation to it. I just want to kind of rotate it out, and we can maybe rotate it this way just so it's kind of out of the way, because again we'll have the opportunity to shape it in Mudbox. Let's duplicate this, and this one we'll kind of bring down a bit lower, bring it out a bit more, again just kind of rotating it a bit, and just so it kind of looks like it could be part of this knot here. Okay, so once we have this geometry, we can take all of these pieces and let's just grab all of these pieces. Let's actually go to combine. Okay, and we'll just make sure that we delete the history, freeze any transforms that may be on there, and then I want to add it to our scene in Mudbox. So I'll take that and go to File, Send to Mudbox, and I want to add to current scene. All right, so it's just giving us that warning about the UVs crossing tile boundaries, just because those UVs are right on the edges, and we're not going to worry about UVs right now, so we'll go ahead and keep this mesh. And again, I'm going to go back and look through the main camera, and now we have our headband in our scene. So the next thing that we want to do is to actually do some sculpting on this headband, because it obviously is cutting through his head. It's not really working for us. We want to add a little bit of detail to it, shape it, and so we'll go ahead and do that in the next lesson.